Welcome to another episode of today's Conversations on Leadership, powered by Life University. I'm Dr. Gilles LaMarche, your host, and thrilled to have with me as our guest today, Miss Sophia Marshall. Let me tell you a little about her. She's an award-winning communications strategist. She partners with organizations to create value and drive impact with strategic communications programs, from corporate identity and culture to thought leadership and reputation management. Sophia has 20 years of experience in developing and leading integrated communication programs for leading B2B consumer brands. A vice president of public relations for Comcast Central Division, Sophia serves as chief communicator and head public relations for Comcast's largest unit, covering 27,000 employees and 12.7 million customers in the Midwest and the Southeast of the United States. In this role, Sophia leads a team of public relations leaders, managing all aspects of media relations, reputation management, strategic external storytelling in multiple markets. And I love storytelling. As a lifelong learner devoted to the profession, Sophia was recently named on the top 100 corporate executives under 50 by Diversity MBA. Quite a feat, I think you'd all agree. Sophia holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English from Albany State University and a Master of Science in Technical and Professional Communication from Kennesaw State University, right here in Georgia. She resides in the greater Atlanta area with her family, where she also dedicates her spare time to mentoring young girls and women. Sophia, welcome to today's Conversations on Leadership. I'm so happy you were able to take time out of your schedule to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And as I was telling you before we started the recording, I just love your presence. I love your smile, because this is the first time we've ever met. And I'm sure that's the energy that you bring to your world as a communications specialist. So it's exciting to have someone with your qualifications and your dedication to communications with us today. So let's get right into our short interview. Can you name a person who's had maybe a major impact on you, who's really helped you develop your leadership skills, someone you've mentored? And you know, I just mentioned that you mentor young women as it is. Who had an impact on Sophia's life?
Well, it's a little bit tough to name just one person because there's so many people, not only leaders, but peers, colleagues, family members even, who've poured into, my own leadership development. I would say there are a couple standouts for me. One is early in my career, and she happens to work with you, and that would be Angela Getter. Angela was the person where I learned the power of relationships. You walk into a room with Angela and you feel this instant magnetic connection. And it's something that, I've seen her just channel right in my time working for her, working with her, brings people together. And that's not something that can be taught. And so in working with her, I learned very early on that, relationship building was key. And she's also the first leader to really see the potential in me and take a bet, right? She's very courageous. And, we've stayed connected ever since. So, next I would say I worked for a woman who was senior leader at General Electric at the time. And she was a premier operational leader. Now, what was different about her is, she was known for building these sort of great, highly efficient ops leaders, but she brought this human element to it, wherein I learned from her that you can be fantastic operational leader, you can be highly strategic, but the power in her success was really in being able to build and motivate teams. When you're leading a global organization, she had this way of having people and engaging thousands of people from her direct team to sort of the entire organization around an idea that really just started as a vision and you could see it through to execution. And so she invested in culture, she invested in communications and in storytelling, and because she really understood the impact that it would have on performance. And so, I always look back at my time working with her and go, hey, you can have the best laid plans, but if you cannot connect with and motivate people to carry them out, then they aren't worth anything. And, I really learned that from her. And then there were others along the way who, took the time, whether or not it was tied to their job, to just connect, to invest in me, to give me ideas, to exchange ideas. And I still have these connections today where, I call former colleagues. I'll call anyone. I'm going to be calling you next saying, hey, I had an idea. What do you think about this? Because I think it's important to surround yourself with those people who are leaders in just all facets.
Because the human element of leadership is what is missing in some leaders, right? They may have a position of leadership. It doesn't mean they're great leaders.
Oh, absolutely. I'm working with a futurist right now, and I just learned what a futurist is a little while ago. But we're bringing him in for a conversation with our top leaders. And as we were talking about, his talk and how to, motivate the top leaders of, our division, we started down this path of talking about humane leadership and how important it is, right, that leaders build these sort of human connections, and how not only employees are expecting that, but consumers of brands have come to expect that, right? How are you making people as individuals better? How are you making the world a better place? So I agree with you on that part of it. The humane piece of it is key.
A thought that popped into my head, and I don't usually sort of promote Life University on this, which is really talking about leadership, but it brought to the forefront for me the fact that our positive psychology department has developed this compassion integrity training. And if ever you want to learn about it, just Google Life University compassion integrity training, and you
All
can
right.
learn more about the course that they're offering. Currently offered, I think, in 67 or 68 countries around the globe. And this was launched less than 2 years ago.
Oh,
But definitely, we know that great leaders, that human element, is because they have compassion, they have integrity, they've got some of these deep, deep seated values. Thanks for sharing that. And I can tell you, I saw your storytelling ability immediately because the way you described, and I think a lot of viewers, when they watch this, may tell you the same thing. You actually painted a story for me. And I was just following you as if there was a film happening. I was like, wow, that's a great story. Started with Angela, and then the next one is like, wow, you're really good at that. My next question for you is really about what you do, like the decisions that Sophia has to make as a leader. What are some of the most important decisions that you have to make, maybe every day?
I'll tell you the number one decision that, I have to make is in talent and in people. And, you know, I really spend my time thinking about investing in and coaching the teams that are out here telling the stories about our brand, making sure that they have the right skill sets, making sure that they're highly engaged, and making sure that they understand, what are the priorities that we have to accomplish. So for me, people is number one. And every single day, it's about understanding where they are, being able to meet them on that journey, and how do we bring them along. So, you know, earlier in my career, I spent a lot of time as a leader focusing on sort of the tactic, right? Managing the work. Now, I raise it up and focus on my leadership of teams and of people. And that's just key for me. There's some things you can't teach. And so when you're hiring, I really like to think about it as not assembling a team of experts per se, but who are the people who have those skills that you cannot teach, right? Those soft skills who are able to build those relationships, make those connections. They have the intuition, right? And of course, the basic skills in storytelling. That's what I'm looking for, right? Because those are the people who are going to get the work done.
And that's where impact comes from, right? I mean, leaders come to the point where you understand that the impact really comes from, again, from the human aspect of your talent, not
Right.
just this tasks and their talent as accomplishing a task, but how they actually are delivering themselves and behaving themselves. Yeah,
It's a
important decision for sure.
differentiator too. That human element is a differentiator between us and machines, right? We just look at the history of society. If we were purely focused on the task, at some point we're smart enough. We're going to figure out a way that a machine or robot can complete the task. What we bring to it as humans is that human element, and we have to remember that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. My next question to you is really as relates to maybe the errors or the mistakes, in your years in the corporate world. What is one mistake that you have witnessed leaders do more frequently than any other mistake?
I would say it's what we've been talking about. not taking the time to make the connection. It is so easy to come into a role as a leader, to feel the pressures of the priorities, the business goals, all the things that you have to accomplish, and not lift your head up enough to take the time to build the relationships and make the connections. And so, I've seen, leaders in, there are times in my career where, I've stepped into a space where I wasn't taking the time to understand, to connect before we go right into work. I don't know what kind of evening you've had, but that is what you're bringing into your job every day, right? Not focusing on sort of how to build those bonds. And then, there's the other side of it. I would say, one mistake that I've seen leaders make is just not being to artfully manage the conflict. It's going to happen. It's human nature. Figuring out how to do that, not being afraid to do that, so we can move those things that are ultimately distractions out of the way and figure out how we can be a team going after a goal.
Yeah, again, we're all the way back again to the human element of talent and being willing as a leader to take the time to stop by someone's desk, go to their cubicle, even if you're the leader, but stop and say hello and check in on them. That
Yes,
human element just builds a team that gets stronger and stronger because of it, doesn't it?
absolutely, it does. I tell you, the leaders that I've worked for who, know my children's names or know, that I like to sing or my interest on the weekends, those ones that have that connection with are the ones that can call me today. We're in two separate companies, two separate places. They could ask me to do anything almost, and I would do it for them. So,
So still respond because you built the relationship. It's relationship. People don't understand the value sometimes of relationship capital. And I think leaders need to understand that maybe more than anyone else.
absolutely.
That's for
Yes.
sure. Okay, well, as still a young leader, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
under
like that. Thank
50,
you.
top 100 under 50, as still a young leader, what advice would you give someone who's just starting off in a leadership role?
You don't have to have it all figured out. It is
Mm,
very easy to walk into your first leadership role. You've been assigned this title, you have a team of people, and you feel compelled to not admit the things that you don't know, and to try to cover these things. Instead, open yourself up to learning, to listening, and recognizing that if you are willing to do that, that just elevates your leadership, right? So the number one is you don't have to have it figured all out. Don't put the pressure on yourself to do so. Number two, I would say, for young leaders, it is surround yourself with people outside of your industry or your work, who lead in all areas. They may be the leader of a young kids basketball group, or a leader such as yourself. But diversify the group of people that you can bring into that become sort of your board of directors, right? That help you to navigate the challenges you're going to have along the way, and you will. And so it's all about learning, basically, you know, being willing to learn from those you work with and for, and being willing to learn from others. And, there's an art of humility that comes along with being
mm.
able to admit, right, that you are on this continuous journey of growing and developing as a leader. And I don't think that ever stops. When it does, you're in trouble.
Well, that's perfect segue into my last question for this because I was going to ask you, what do you do to stay on that Kaizen principle of continuous improvement for yourself?
I would say base level, I am a curious person. I'm a lifelong learner. Maybe that has a lot to do with my work. But, I spend, a certain amount of my time every morning. I dedicate sort of first time in the morning to just learning something new. And it may not be about PR or communications per se, but it's the time to expand my thinking, and my own self development. So making that just a pattern of what I do. Number two, back to the things we talked about, those relationships. I call up my unofficial group of, leaders that, I've connected with along the way about a variety of topics, right? We just kind of brainstorm over them and we talk about them. And number three, I make sure that I stay connected and I build in ways to stay connected at all levels of the organization, right? I need to know what is most important to someone who is actually selling an Xfinity mobile phone in a store. I also need just as much as I need to know what's important to our CEO. But it's having that under baseline understanding at all levels of how things resonate, of knowing what matters. That's important for any leader, and especially important for me. So keeping those connections, making sure that I'm grounded and I'm in touch, and that I don't surround myself with people that are just going to tell me what I want to hear. So
Yeah.
those,
Be willing to receive comments even from those that report to you, right?
you can't be a communicator without realizing that communication is two-way. So
I used to tell, I still tell my team now, I was like, you are my mirror. If I ever do anything that is really outside the realm of what we believe is what we must be doing here, then call me out.
yes, yes.
My administrative assistant, I said, I have a new administrative assistant. I said, no, no, you are in charge of all of this. So take the charge. And if I'm ever out of line, just call me out. And she looked at me, she's young and obviously I'm much older than she is. She looked at me, I was like, just understand, I'm serious.
Right.
This is not a joke. Be willing to call me out if ever I was out of line as your leader. So we can have a lot of fun being leaders though, right?
Yes, we can. We can. It's actually, I consider it a fun and important role in my professional life and my personal life. You talk about your administrative assistant. I tell my 9-year-old, hey, if you've got a difference of opinion, let me know. Right.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Closing comment for our audience, if you would, Sophia.
you know, I think there's nothing more important right now for all of us than leadership. There is, you know, just a lot to be gained by, as we've seen over the last few years, by making sure we have and invest in the right leaders in the right places in all facets of our lives. And so I think we need to have more conversations about leadership. I think need to have more individual dialogue as leaders, right? Not only learning from each other, but also challenging each other. And ultimately, that's just going to help all of us, including the world that we live in.
Well, thank you for being an amazing guest. We are recording this on a Friday, so I hope you have a fantastic weekend and know that there's always an open invitation for you to come and visit Life University. And I think that someday, not sure when, but I think I just might invite you to be a guest speaker in front of our student body to talk to them about leadership and storytelling and share some of the wisdom that you shared on this episode today. So look forward to staying connected with you.
I would absolutely appreciate it. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.